Welcome to the Amador Fire Can Report, your go-to source for the latest updates, insights, and stories from Amador Fire. Serving over 500 square miles from the vineyards in the valley to the snow-capped Sierras, our combination department staffs 9 stations and puts 7 engines on the road every single day. Backed by a team of dedicated professionals and more than 30 committed volunteers, we're here to protect, serve, and engage with our community. From fire safety tips to behind-the-scenes action, we're here to keep you informed. For episode 7, I'm sitting down with the Amador County Sheriff Gary Redmond and our Fire Chief Robert Withrow to highlight the collaboration and partnerships between the two departments. So starting with you, Sheriff Redmond, let's begin with some of your background.
So I started in law enforcement in 1988 when I joined the United States Air Force. I actually went in to be an aircraft mechanic. That's how they got me into the Air Force. And during boot camp, typical military said, "No, you're going to be a cop." Fortunately, back then the security police were bifurcated. It was law enforcement and then security, like flight line security, guarding missiles, etc. So I went into the law enforcement side. After basic training and going through the academy with security police, I found out I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. So that brought me to a career that I didn't want to stay in the Air Force. I did my 4 years and wanted to get into the civilian world and got on with LAPD because I did grow up in LA. My wife's originally from Tuolumne, and after a couple of years, she said it's time to go, which I was ready, and that's how I ended up here. Good. And it's been, I tell you what, it's been just an awesome career up here. Love Amador County. Been very blessed with everything that's happened over the several years. Never thought I would be in this position. Yeah. Not something I really aspired to do, but Martin Ryan had some different plans for me.
Yeah, well, we're happy you're in that position too. And Chief Withrow, I know we've talked in prior episodes about your background and what led you here as Fire Chief with Amador Fire, but maybe just share some of your experiences. I know you two have worked together for quite a while now, so some of your background and what led you guys to the partnership you have today.
Sure. Well, I think I first got introduced to Sheriff Redmond, I want to say during the Butte Fire.
Butte Fire, yeah.
And he was assigned, if I remember right, you had a little different assignment. Like, were you working in Calaveras or something? You were here, but your role was over there helping with evacuations or something. I don't remember.
I started, I was a captain at the time.
Yeah.
So I remember when the Butte Fire kicked off, I had just returned from a anniversary trip in Alaska.
That's right.
And that day, the first day back, it kicked off. And so I ended up being the IC for the sheriff's office.
Yeah, that's right.
Was assigned eventually over in Calaveras.
That's right. You were at the fairgrounds over there. That's what it was. So I'd heard this name, hey, Captain Redmond, great guy. We enjoy working with him. I was employed with a different agency at the time with the state. And so immediately I just, liked his reputation, liked what I was hearing, and we've built a relationship from there, really.
Yeah, we've been friends ever since. And it was, that was my first big fire. I worked a lot of, smaller fires where we ended up, having to do all those evacuations. Right. And immediately I jumped in with CAL FIRE, and that's where I met Rob. We formed, I think, a good bond. And I loved the way he was operating and how he was dealing with the fire. And and we've just been friends ever since.
Yeah. Right.
I think it's always important when you got to have that mutual respect and credibility. And I think we were fortunate because we sort of met in the heat of battle, and we got to see how each other was going to perform under that kind of stress. Yeah. And I just admired him for that big time.
Absolutely. And that leads me right into my next question. Not just from a community standpoint, but also from an internal department standpoint for both agencies, it's super important that we maintain a strong working relationship with both agencies. And so I just wanted to ask, what is your perspectives on why it's important that, the local fire department and the local sheriff's office, maintains that transparency and that collaboration?
Yeah, just to start, I would say, I think the general public might be a little surprised on just how important that relationship in particular is. We think about wildland fires and evacuations and all those things, and those are certainly complex, very dynamic incidents. But there's also those day-to-day incidents where we work closely with our law enforcement partners, specifically the Amador County Sheriff's Office, whether it's a violence-involved medical emergency, if it's a specialized rescue in the river, on and on and on. So just having that level of collaboration where we're not just, partners on the surface, but we're actually getting together behind the scenes, collaborating on things is just critical in our service delivery. And I think it's also critical for the sheriff's service delivery. Um, and I just can't stress that enough. Yeah. And I've always said, even though we just talked about a little bit ago, we basically met at the command post. That works fine and that was good. But one of the things we try to accomplish, or that I always try to accomplish, is build those relationships ahead of time. And when I work with Sheriff Redmond's staff, some of his command staff and sergeants, etc., it's always nice that it's not a stranger showing up at the
Yeah.
command post or on the other end of the phone. It's somebody I know, I have a relationship with. It just helps make things much more efficient. At least that's my perspective.
And I'm going to echo that. For me, it really started when I was down in LA and working with LA City Fire, being LAPD. We had a great relationship, highly respected. We in law enforcement, there's such a huge component with fire, emergency response that, we're working hand in hand. And when I got up here, I saw that same, attitude of we're not big enough, we're not strong enough. We all have to work together
Yeah, absolutely.
collaboratively to really, what is our end goal? Our end goal is the public safety, whether it's responding to, like the chief said, wildland fires, medical emergencies, coroner's cases, medical assist. We during the snowmageddon snowstorms. Here I am reaching out to Amador Fire, helping us because of down trees. I went out and purchased some chainsaws for you guys
Yeah.
and said, hey, if I'm asking you to do this, I'm gonna at least give you the equipment.
We appreciate that very much.
But it's because we've had that relationship and that collaboration, because ultimately it's that goal of providing the finest public safety, which encompasses all of us.
That's right.
Whether it's EMS, law enforcement, fire, probation, DA's office. I mean, all of us have to work together. But once again, I truly appreciate the fact that we have those relationships, so we're not just strangers showing up.
Likewise.
I think too, over the years that I've been here with Amador Fire and working with the sheriff's office, we've really evolved more so into not just dealing with each other on incidents, but also pre-planning and doing trainings like our evacuation drills. And we're super grateful for you guys, because half the time it's us reaching out with, in 3 weeks we're doing an evacuation drill. And from your OES department to the deputies going door to door, those drills have really been successful in these communities. And now we're getting multiple requests, and you guys are always there. And something that I stress about those drills a lot is it's not just for the community, although that's very helpful and that's the point of it, but we're training your people, we're training our people.
Absolutely.
So when it does happen, like the Tiger Fire this year, we're already prepared. We know what to expect from you guys, and vice versa.
Yeah. And, a couple things on that. We've got our active shooter training coming up,
Yeah.
and you guys are a huge part of that, because now we're integrating and
Love
really the, what's evolved from active shooter over a decade, is you guys play a huge role in that, because, we're going to go in, we're going to neutralize. That's our job, is to stop the threat at really any cost. And it used to be this, you have four deputies show up, or 4 officers, a diamond formation, you do this. Now it's, I carry all my gear, because if that comes out, you're a solo deputy, you're going in, you're not waiting. The Uvalde incident was horrific. It should have never happened. But now we need that EMS component, that fire component, to come in and start triaging. You mentioned the Tiger Fire, and I tell you what, probably one of the most seamless operations I've ever been on, because we've been working together for so long. Ever since that Butte Fire, there were a lot of lessons learned on that.
Yeah.
The Butte Fire, then the Caldor Fire came out. Didn't have a huge impact on our county. It had, a lot of people were really worried. I had a lot of sleepless nights watching wind direction, because that's all it was.
Right.
It was a shift of wind direction, and you and I were in constant communication, working with Kayla. And now we have the Tiger Fire, and just attacked it.
Yeah, I agree. And I wanted to back up really quick. There's I wanted to share one thing about Sheriff Redmond that I truly admire, and I admire this in any leader, but I think Sheriff Redmond exemplifies this. There's a saying in the military, at the end of the day, everybody's a rifleman, whether you're a general or not. And I really admire that with our sheriff, is that when he says he carries his gear with him, He means that. And I know, I have a child that attends a local school here, and I know, God forbid, if something went down and Sheriff Redmond's in the area, he's going to go handle business. He's not coming to the office, and I just appreciate that. I noticed that with him early on. There was some events that went down that were solely law enforcement, but I just heard about, and I just wanted to give you props for that. I appreciate that. I think it's important at the end of the day that all of us can get down to business if we really need to.
Yeah.
And you definitely are that person, so I appreciate it.
Thank you. I truly love what I've been doing. I
Good.
love being, a deputy. So when I went to admin, I was missing that aspect, but I still, I still go out. If a hot call comes out, like I said, I have all my gear. I wear my vest to and from wherever I go.
Good.
I've got all my gear ready to go. I'm going to go assist that deputy. I'm going to help. And the funny thing is, at first, it was kind of freaking the deputies out
Sure.
because, the sheriff, you shouldn't be out here. And I'm like, you got to remember, I've trained about half this agency. I ran our SWAT team
Sure.
for 18 years. I'll be fine. I'm not going to get in your way. If I start getting in their way, it's time for me to stay on my desk.
Sure. Yeah. I love it.
And that's actually something we were just talking about yesterday when we were prepping for this podcast. Is I was explaining to Chief Withrow, I really admire both of you guys because both of you will respond to calls, and it's the same. We've been heading to a meeting and we're the closest resource to a call, and we're like on the same road as it. So I think that that's something unique and not all agencies do. I just attended a class down in Riverside at Riverside PD for PIO stuff, and that was something that they were talking about, where their chiefs and their fire chiefs or their sheriffs don't really respond to calls and they don't know what's going on. So they have to get that briefing or update from their public information officer or their deputies. And I know both of you guys are always going to respond if it's a serious call.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the things I wanted to talk about was at the command post and navigating that when we have multiple agencies coming in. We talked about the Tiger Fire a little bit, but on this most recent one, you actually helped lead with evacuations with the sheriff's office. And so I want to talk about that and the communication with that.
Yeah, so I think what's important to understand is when we're fighting a vegetation fire, the fire itself has its own challenges in terms of suppressing the fire, trying to steer it, control it, etc. And that evacuation piece, although it sounds relatively simple, like, hey, you go knock on a few doors, tell people to get out of the way, it is extremely, it has its own complexities. It's a big deal. You're really unnerving people. You're disrupting things. Like we talked about on the Tiger Fire was a good example where we had a couple different ways in and out of there, but one main road, Tiger Creek Road, which can be narrow. So now we're flushing all these people out. We're trying to get resources in. All that stuff requires tremendous coordination. And if you recall, as soon as we arrived, CAL FIRE arrived with us, and I face-to-face with the CAL FIRE battalion chief said, hey, you deal with the fire. I'm going to work on getting an evacuation plan. And one of Sheriff Redmond's, I believe it was a deputy, it may have been a sergeant, arrived immediately following our arrival. And I just said, hey man, here's what we're going to do. Here's what needs to go. And I tried to keep that pressure off the CAL FIRE BC who was fighting the actual fire. So it's almost like we have, I don't want to say two separate incidents, but we have two different objectives in support of the overall plan of protecting life and property. And I think having knowledge of our communities, knowing our deputies, knowing our law enforcement partners, having, experienced evacuations and had evacuations go wrong in the past and all those things, I think really helped us. And the other thing that really helped us is when I spoke to law enforcement, hey, we're going to evacuate this home, I did not get a deer in the headlights look. I got a, yep, got it, copy, boom, things were happening. And it's always a little chaotic at first, the first 30 minutes or so. But one of the things that impressed me was I felt like, and I give props to CAL FIRE too and their battalion chief, that incident, we started getting ahead of that pretty quick. We weren't reacting to it as long as we normally do. You know what I mean? We turned that corner much quicker. Right. And I credit our law enforcement partners, the Amador County Sheriff's Office, for having a presence at the command post. All of those things. And I think Managing an effective command post is a challenge unto itself because there's a lot of people coming in. They want questions, and all of them are important questions, but not all of them are a priority. And obviously, evacuations were one of our top priorities. So, giving those folks a place to work, keeping them in the loop operationally, what was happening, where the fire was heading, so on and so forth, worked really, really well. I don't know if I answered your question, but
I think he did. He did.
Okay,
He did a good
sorry.
job. But to be honest, like I said, it was almost one of those. No operation is seamless. There's always lessons learned. There's things that you could have done better. You could have done differently.
Sure.
So fire and law enforcement. I think we try to do those after actions and those debriefs so we can learn. But when I arrived on scene, I was impressed with how the operation was going. To me, it seemed, I was listening to the radio when the fire first kicked off. I turned on my radio, and so I'm getting all the information. I'm listening, and told my wife, "Okay, it's time for me to get dressed.
I got to go to this one.
I'm going to this one. It's not gonna go away."
Right.
But it comes back to that training. It comes back to that collaboration. It comes back to the relationships that we've established over the years with all of our partners here in Amador County.
Yeah.
For us, that is our main objective during a fire. That's why we respond to every single fire, because when you guys say, "Hey, we're gonna have to start evacuating,"
Yep.
we have to be prepared. We have to be ready. Communication is the key with the community. We've got our new system with our new mapping. I think that was a huge help.
I agree.
People are really into watch duty, which I think is also a benefit, but at the same time, it can be a little detrimental because they're listening to watch duty, which always isn't accurate.
Right.
Anything we put out, and this, Chief, is once you put something out,
Yeah. It's gospel.
It's gospel. You
Yeah.
better be right.
That's right.
And
So true.
that's why it does take us a little bit of time. We've got a vetting process. We've got to make sure that we're putting out that accurate, timely information. We ended up, once again, you talk about collaboration.
Yeah.
We called on the local PDs. We called on our probation department. I ended up reaching out to the sheriff with Calaveras and got some Calaveras deputies. And it was just,
awesome.
just like that. It was just no issue at all. So we had this small army up there doing those evacuations because, not everybody has signed up for our notification system. So it's imperative that we go and we do that door to door to door. And I tell people, they're like, "Well, what if the phone, the phone system's down and this and
Right.
that?" I go, "Trust me, we've got contingencies for everything."
Yeah.
Satellites and the phone system and communications can implode.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have a deputy on your doorstep
Yep.
or a probation officer or a PD officer telling you it's time to go, please.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, that was impressive. That reflex time was minimal. There was a lot of help there, just in the law enforcement realm, a lot of help there right away. And what I found reassuring is it wasn't an uncoordinated mess. Everybody was checking in, everybody was reporting.
Yeah.
People were, on deck, ready to go, should we need them. And I thought that was
I
good.
tell you what, our poor dispatchers, they did an amazing job because they are coordinating.
They
a
get
lot of this.
hammered, boy.
Absolutely. They get inundated with calls. And I tell people, hey, during some type of an emergency and an event, you got to remember their primary focus is coordination and answering deputies on the radio.
Right.
And also, there's other things in the county that haven't stopped.
That's right.
Medical aids are still coming out.
That's exactly right.
911 calls are still coming out throughout the county.
So true.
So now we're sending dispatchers in, more dispatchers into dispatch to help out. But it truly does take a small army to do this stuff. And like I said, it comes back down to the training, the relationships, and working together over the years to have a successful event.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You talk about those other calls. That's a challenge for us as well, just in terms of resource drawdown.
Yeah.
And fortunately, we've got a robust force of volunteers and off-duty staff. We had a lot of stuff committed, obviously, to the Tiger Fire, left some of our stations briefly uncovered.
Yeah.
But because of that surge capacity that our volunteer program, our off-duty members provide, we were able to fill those holes pretty quickly. But that's a very good point. I think we forget sometimes, like, that's not the only game in town.
Exactly.
All that other stuff is still going on.
Everything else doesn't stop. I wish it did,
Me
but
too.
unfortunately, everything else
that's
keeps going on.
That's an excellent point.
And I would, I keep forgetting some of our partners. CHP played a tremendous
Yeah.
role. Or, you talked about
Absolutely.
CAL FIRE and
Yeah,
the state.
absolutely.
And once again, a phenomenal relationship
Yeah.
with the lieutenant. Who I'm losing this lieutenant,
Mm.
and I'm like, "Hey, guys, every time I get a new lieutenant trained, you have to send me another one to train."
That's right. That's right.
And they kind of laugh. And I'm like, what, we do have a great relationship. The sergeant Reggie Whitehead, he was up there, and their team was responding. They're closing down the roads, which is very,
Yeah.
very important. That
Huge.
takes that burden off of us, so then we can focus on doing the actual evacuations.
I think with that collaboration, I just want to go back on something really quick. What the community may not realize or see how important it is not just building trust, but maintaining that trust on incidents and that happening before incidents even start, like we talked about our drills and stuff. But since the beginning, with me in this role, it's always very easy and simple to work with your agency, especially usually I'm going to the OES sergeant in terms of what messaging looks like on these incidents
Yeah.
or when we're doing a training. And I always kind of laugh because whoever's in that role with OES knows, like, when something goes down or the tones
Yeah.
start going off, they're like, here's Kayla.
And pester me a little
Yeah, but I've helped you guys build images for your social media
Yep.
and vice versa, and thrown documents back and forth on how we can better build, and maintain the transparency for that. And I've seen it play out on incidents, and I love that collaboration. At the command post when I know what you guys are doing, you guys know what I'm doing, and when I say,
Yeah.
hey, we have a news crew here, we need to get something out, who's going on, it flows very simple, and it's needs practice.
Yeah, and once again, I think you and I, Kayla, first met at the Caldor fire. I knew who you were, but I think that was our first time really kind of working together. I was very impressed, and I've told the chief a few times if I could steal her,
Yes,
I
right.
would make her my PIO.
It's always threatening me.
And on the Tiger Fire, once again, Kayla's, she's calling me, she's giving me information.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a news crew here. Do you want to talk to them? And they're asking about evacuations because that's really our component. Absolutely. So what I learned, during the Butte fire and then actually the Electra fire is the community. And I've tried to do this as sheriff with all of the operations is I've got to get information out. I've got to stay
Yeah.
engaged with the community. I've got to interact with them. If we're not putting information out, they're going to set their own narrative
Right.
and
Yeah.
start
Mhm.
saying, okay, this is how it's going. No, we've got to give them that information so they can make decisions on what's happening. Should they evacuate? Should they not? Should they stay?
Mhm.
Another thing that I want to talk about real quick on the Electra fire is one of these lessons learned is once you evacuate people, they're not coming back in. But at the same time, you can't just say, too bad, so sad. You're not coming in. Well, I've got medication for my husband. I've got
Right.
to check on my animals. So what we started doing is at the command post, we started having people. I was like, okay, go to the command post, check in with them. They will escort you or
Perfect.
physically take you so you can get your items, you can get what you need.
Mhm.
And on the Tiger Fire, a gentleman shows up and he's got a couple cats. He wants to check on the dog, and I said, get my unit, let's go.
Yeah, love
And he
it.
looked at me, what? I go, let's go.
Love
I'm
it.
going to take you in because it's not safe. There's so much, like you said,
Yeah.
that the firefighting and the
Yeah.
apparatuses and
Yeah.
what's going on inside. What people don't understand is even for me navigating through that. It's you don't want people in there that are going to cause issues that are going to
Right.
impede what they're focused on. Or get ultimately hurt with power lines down, etc.
Exactly right.
So that's one of those it's kind of morphed over the years that we're going to continue is yeah, it's a hard closure, but at the same time we're going to be compassionate and we're going to get people in and
Absolutely.
out.
Yeah, I mean, the overall objective is we're here to help people.
Yes.
We're not here to hurt anybody. And
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. I witnessed that firsthand. I think at first blush, that sounds a little like, whoa, what? You're going to do what?
Yeah.
But witnessing that actually play out on that last fire, I think it worked very well. calmed people down.
Yes.
And I think honestly, it kept the command post calm because we didn't have this angry mob off to the side.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. The biggest thing for me on these large scale fires is once we do evacuations, I'm already talking to Cal Fire. I'm talking to you guys about
Yeah.
when are we going to repopulate?
Yeah, that's
When are we
right.
going to repopulate? Because that's what the community is hitting us up.
Yeah.
They want to know when we're going to repopulate. Obviously, it's got to be safe. It can't be active. The threat's got to be gone. And I think really during the Tiger Fire, what I saw from the community is they understood that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's been enough education out there from all of us that they are understanding that.
Right, absolutely. And we've talked a lot about fires here, but I want to talk about the Swift Water team. And that's just a great example of the interagency collaboration and
Yeah.
partnerships. And we've seen that grow and
Yeah.
be successful on recent calls.
Yes.
So let's talk about that a little bit.
I got to start. The sheriff's going to buy me lunch because I'm giving him
I know.
so many compliments.
Yeah.
No, all of them are well deserved.
Apparently
I
he
just
wants a steak dinner out of
that's
this.
right. Yeah, this will be a nice meal here. But anyways, I just applaud Sheriff Redmond for letting us work with his. So they've had a Swiftwater team for several years. Works very well. Everybody's highly trained or equipped. It's a good program, and for him to have enough faith in our agency to let us kind of, into that circle, if you will, has been huge. And I think we've ran enough incidents now where those two teams are starting to become seamless.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the benefit to our community is just huge. We maintain a certain number. We have a minimum of 6 Swiftwater rescue technicians on duty every day, ready to respond. They've got their team ready to respond. And just seeing those groups come together, get down to business, speak the same language has been huge.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is an excellent point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
That is one of the huge benefits of having a good cooperative relationship with the Sheriff's Department. Absolutely.
No, it's been great. And for me, that was a no-brainer. We did the same thing on SWAT when I was running our team. We integrated with El Dorado
Cool.
to the point where it was so seamless that we could substitute an El Dorado and Amador.
Love it.
It made zero difference because we have 12 people slated for our SWAT team. Typically, we're running around 10. A large scale incident, something that is very complex, we're not able to handle. We're going to be calling outside resources to help us. So it's the same concept.
Mm-hmm.
We have a Swiftwater team, but you guys have the capability of responding a lot faster than we do. It made perfect sense of what's in the best interest of the community, what's in the best interest of rescuing these people. To have that immediate response. Now we're so integrated, we're speaking that same language that they're saying, hey, we need this, you guys are going to be doing this, and that's how it should be.
Right.
It's that collaboration of working together.
You know what it is, and it's the same thing on a Swiftwater call. If I'm available, generally I'll respond. Our battalion chief will get integrated into the operational side, and I'll assume command. But we go into unified command with your sergeant generally, who's on scene. And I've had several different sergeants now on different incidents, and I will say that is one operation. We could always learn and do better and all those things, and I'm not discounting that, but it has been pretty darn seamless, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No,
And
it has.
I just appreciate that.
And probably because I don't respond to those.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Swiftwater rescue.
right. I hate
That is
it,
one
so
thing.
I hate it, man.
I was our boating deputy, and they wanted me to get on the dive team, and I was like, "Hold on, you want me to dive for bodies?
Nah,
no,
I'm good.
I'll operate the boat. Swiftwater, if you give me a surfboard, I might be able to surf down it as an ex-surfer, but I'm probably going to be in the way."
That's
Yeah.
great.
I personally have really witnessed that on the last 2 Swiftwater calls we've had, but the last one I really noticed it was, your guys are getting on scene right behind us. We're just getting the raft inflated. Your guys are suited up. You've got the command post set up. The sergeants are showing up ready to go. And it just happened like boom, boom, boom. And those people, everybody had a plan. I even remember watching the ambulance company there ready to go. It was just, everybody was in the position that they needed to be in.
Yeah.
And that just shows from those trainings that we've done over and over again, like everybody knows their role and is ready to go when it's their time to go.
Exactly. As it should be.
Yeah, that's great. I just want to tag on to reinforce that. You can tell on an incident, if you're close enough, you can hear the yelling and the things going on when stuff's not going right. And when it's smooth, you don't hear a lot of that. And I was impressed. There was a couple times where the patient was out of the water, and it just seemed like, man, we've only been here 15 minutes. We're barely getting set up.
Yeah.
And that's just a testament to how well those groups are working.
Absolutely.
Good question, Kayla.
Yeah. And as we wrap this up, I just have a couple more questions, but I want to talk a tiny bit about leadership with both of you guys in the positions that you are in, both coming from backgrounds that value discipline and teamwork, whether it's, a lifelong career in the fire service or law enforcement, and even Sheriff Redmond, your military background. So how does that influence your mutual respect for each other, but also your leadership style on leading your agencies?
All right, I'm going to start off because Rob's been starting off on all
Yes,
these.
right. Hogging the mic.
You know what first impressed me with the chief is he and I are very much alike.
Yeah.
You're not afraid to tell me
Right.
that you're going down the wrong path.
Right.
That's not correct. That's not right.
I appreciate
we
that.
need to do it. Let's do it this way.
Right.
And to me, that speaks volumes of leadership when you're not afraid to stick your own neck out
Right.
because it's the right thing to do.
Thank you.
And like you said, Kayla, coming from that military background, when I first became sheriff, every sheriff has their I want to say theme. That's not the correct word. Their motto of the agency, the direction they want the agency to go, something that the deputies can look at. And coming from the military, I was like, okay, I I like the discipline that the military gave me. I like the how the military is very efficient. Um, but at the same time, I was proud to be a warrior in the military. So I came up with mine, and I think it's been successful because it kind of speaks on where I come from. The first component is proud to serve. You better be proud to put that badge and uniform on, because if you're not, go find another job. And I don't say job, I go find another career, because if
Yeah.
it's not a career,
Good point.
you're in the wrong line of work.
Yeah.
And then ready to protect. That goes back to that solo deputy going in on an active shooter. I've had to handle domestic violence calls. Unfortunately, our deputies, sometimes we run out of deputies at night, and you're handling it by yourself.
Yeah.
So you better be ready. You better be ready for that. I've always been a very hands-on, a very operational person. It drives my staff nuts sometimes because, like I was saying, I will respond to hot calls. I make a ton of traffic stops. One of the biggest complaints I get here in Amador County is people driving like just complete idiots.
Yeah.
Well, I drive an unmarked. Guess what? I get to see all that.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like, I'm late for a meeting. I've got to get to A and B. I can't make this stop. Other times I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to be late. You cross over double yellows, you're getting pulled over by me,
Yeah.
and you're going to get a citation.
That's rough, getting pulled over by the sheriff. You're probably not getting out of that ticket, man.
You know what? Believe it or not, I usually educate most people.
Do you? Okay.
I do. I was a traffic cop in LA.
Sure.
I try to educate, but there are some things that are so egregious that
Yeah.
I've thrown the book at them. The funny thing is most people don't even recognize me because I don't think they expect a sheriff actually pulling them over. Every once in a while, I get their eyes they'll look at my name tag and their eyes get big, and I'm like, oh, you just figured out who I am.
Yeah, I just would echo what Sheriff Redmond said. One of the things that attracted me to the fire service was the structure and the discipline, and that fits my personality well. From a leadership standpoint, I like to say that I learned how to lead people the hard way by making a lot of mistakes. And there was a point in my career where I was very task oriented and not so much people oriented. And although that's good at getting projects done, that's not an effective way to build a team or get people to follow you. So I'm both embarrassed and proud to say that I've learned a lot the hard way. But that's just how I learn, unfortunately. In terms of I think the sheriff's vision and very rarely would I ever speak for anybody else, but I know I speak for the sheriff when I say we share the fundamental goal of public service. That's what we're about. And I think what he just said about pride in the agency and so on and so forth, that's all rooted in that public service, and I share that. And one thing I wanted to point out about Sheriff Redmond that I thought that just impressed the hell out of me is we have issues in the springtime and sometimes in the late summer with illegal burning. And it's not only a public nuisance at times, it's also a threat to, public safety. And for various different reasons, different agencies don't always necessarily want to enforce some of that. And it was thanks to Sheriff Redmond, who honestly called me and said, hey, what the heck are you guys doing? We need to start issuing citations for this, that we do that now. And I will say that the measure of success, we started that last fire season. And I think we issued 25, my number could be wrong, but 25 citations. I think this year we're at like 4 or 5. Yeah. So it clearly worked. And in terms of leadership, that's, I say this respectfully, but that's the sheriff kind of getting out of his wheelhouse a little bit, burn permits and all that, but having the courage and the moral compass to say, hey, man, what are you guys doing? Like, you're missing the mark here. And that's the stuff, that's the relationship we have that I really appreciate. And Sheriff Redmond is somebody I will call for advice at times. When I'm frustrated or something's upsetting me, I'll call the sheriff. Hey, what do you think? Help me out here. And more than once, he has guided me or said, man, you're making a big deal out of nothing. And I value that. So I do think our styles are very similar. I think people like us are drawn to fire and law enforcement, the military, because we do well in that structure.
And with the burn permits, I've seen firsthand with you, whether we're at a town hall or just a meeting or simply a property inspection where somebody says, well, nobody does burn permits, or do you issue burn permits? And to be able to say, no, we have the sheriff's support on these burn permits, it kind of backs people off a little bit. Oh, okay.
Absolutely does.
It's not just something Amador Fire is doing. We're in communication with the sheriff's office, the district attorney's office, and we have everyone's support for this.
Yeah. And exactly. I looked at it and you are getting a steak dinner probably.
Yeah.
I looked at it as a public safety, risk to Amador County, but also a preventable public safety risk. If we can prevent that wildland fire, we need to do everything we possibly can. Yeah. And I don't want to, call an agency out, but to be honest, CAL FIRE was kind of missing the mark on that.
Sure.
So that's when I called Rob and said, the chief, I was like, hey, what can we do together?
Yeah.
And, with your loss prevention officer, and if she's not available, then it's a deputy that's going to show up and issue a citation, which they did.
Yeah.
To me, it's just, it's that unacceptable. It's like crossing over double yellows. It's just unacceptable. You're going to kill somebody eventually.
Yeah. Love it.
And it's just another one of those things where we, not just us, but you guys also are gaining that community trust, because people know now we're going to cite people, because people will call very upset about their neighbors or somebody burning, and to be able to now say we're issuing burn permits,
burn citations,
burn citations with the support of the sheriff's office. It's a really big thing.
It is.
People need to be held accountable. There's we have fire season, and you look at it. You can speak of this. Every fire generally is human caused.
Vast majority for sure.
The vast majority is somebody out mowing in July at 2:00 in the afternoon when the humidity level's at 3%. It's like, what are you actually thinking? You need to be held accountable.
No, I completely agree. And I say, the testament to that effectiveness has been the sharp decrease in illegal burning in Amador County. And I honestly credit the sheriff with that, because I was just as frustrated. I just needed somebody to kind of wake us up, like, hey, what are you doing? We can do this together. Oh, we can? Okay, let's do this.
Yeah, we met with the DA, and the DA's office said, we will absolutely prosecute these. It's generally a fine. You're not going to jail.
Right.
You start a fire, that could be different.
It's a different animal.
Different beast, but
absolutely.
Well, I just really want to thank both of you guys for sitting down with me today and discussing this. I think it's very good for our listeners to understand the partnership, the collaboration, and everything that we're working on. And, sometimes new innovations just start with a conversation, and you guys do very well at that. So
love it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that wraps up episode 7 of the Amador Fire Can Report. And I just want to thank Sheriff Redmond and Fire Chief Robert Withrow for sitting down with me today and going through all of these great topics that we covered. Remember, we're more than just a department. We're your neighbors, your first responders, and your community partners. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, safety tips, and more behind-the-scenes stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay prepared.